Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, that's on.
I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. Everyone feeling nice and full? Excellent cake. If you didn't get some, I'm sure there'll be some more later on this afternoon. Welcome along. This afternoon has an amazing selection of events for you to attend, and you are at one of the workshops, which I hope is what you're expecting. We're going to be hearing about building inclusive AI language, dialect and diversity. I'm Sam Rhinus. I'm one of the members of the leadership circle for the AI Alliance. Happy to chat to anyone if you're around later on. It's always good to hear your thoughts about what you've heard already, etc. Come on in, there's a few more seats. There's one more down here and a couple more at the table back there if you're interested. You're not going to hear too much from me today, but I'm delighted to hand you over to Ryo from UBOK. And he's going to share his insights into this along with the rest of the panel you have. And we're looking forward to hearing your own insights in this area. So I will hand you over to Ryo. Please enjoy.
Thank you so much. Is the microphone? I think the microphone is on. And Jelmer can join us back here as well. I'm not seeing any of the online people yet. Are we also live online and everything? Yeah, fantastic. Hi, welcome. We seem to have reached maximum capacity in this room almost, which is a little bit frightening, but it will also be cool. And even more people are joining us. Look at that. I'm Ryo. I'll be your host today. I've got some really cool people with me here today that I'm not going to tell you about yet, because I think it might be nice first to start with a little bit about why you're here and what you're actually doing. There's two more seats here, one here, one here. Find yourself spot or sit on top of a table. It'll be fine. Hi, my name is Ryo, and I'm not here in Glasgow with all of you. I am the CTO of a small Edinburgh startup called UBOK. We are focused on helping young people with mild to moderate mental health issues and related physical symptoms by making support accessible and engaging through automated conversations in our mobile app. We've been working closely with our partners in NHS Grampian for really almost 2 years now at this point. And I'm really telling you this because the seeds of this workshop got planted in one of the very first sessions of user testing that we did. I think about 1.5 years ago, we had a research assistant working with us, Cameron, who would, for some initial testing, invited some young people over to ask them about the mental health apps that they were using and to give them some prototype conversations that we were working on. And he had created some short rough and ready sort of conversations to show them and ask them about. And when I say rough and ready, what I mean is, so Cameron was from Glasgow, right? I'm not. I probably heard I'm not a native speaker. I'm from the Netherlands. What I'm trying to get at is there were expressions, colloquialisms in these conversations that I'd never heard of, right? And I think before this first sort of user testing session, I was a little wary that maybe you come off as unprofessional or amateurish. Long story short, I couldn't have been more wrong. In fact, one of the most positive things to come out of these user testing sessions was that they really loved the tone of voice. They said it felt authentic, that it wasn't patronizing like some of the other things they used. And I think most importantly, some of these young people told us that it was the very first time that it felt like to them that someone had created a product that was designed for them. And I think, I mean, obviously that's had a huge impact on sort of how we work as a company, but I think in a larger sense, it just made me think the promise of artificial intelligence is that we can create products that adapt to the users, right? But I think even with the products that we're creating today, usually users have to adapt to these products, and reversing that, trying to reverse that specifically through our language use is what we're going to be talking about today. This is a huge topic, in many senses, maybe even the topic of the conference, right? So we're going to need ways to focus. That's where these brilliant people come in. When they introduce themselves in a second, you'll hear them that they all come from very different backgrounds and have different types of domain expertise. So what we're going to do, if you're in the online group, I'm trying to look directly into the camera here. So hi, you're all set, you're good. You'll be joined by Siobhan. If you're here in the room, you should have received a little piece of paper with an animal on it when you entered to be sitting at your animal table. Sticking with the theme of language, according to a very, very scientific article that I was sent by Siobhan the other day, these are all animals that you didn't know could speak. If you're sitting at the elephant table, you're wondering, can elephants really speak? That's a brilliant question to be asking your facilitator in a second, right? For the next 30 minutes or so, the facilitators will guide you through a discussion topic or activity that they've prepared about language use and diversity and artificial intelligence, but really sort of anchored in their own domain expertise. And in the last 10, 15 minutes or so, I'll go around all the tables, ask everyone, as well as the online group, to pick a representative and give us a brief summary of really sort of the key points, the takeaway messages that you'll remember from this workshop. Maybe the theme at your table will be something that you already know a lot about, in which case, great. Share your experiences. Maybe it's a theme that you actually find really, really boring, in which case even better, because we're here to learn and share our experiences, right? Or at least that's the idea. Does it sound like a plan? Are you good? Are you excited? Yay! That sounded very loud in my head. So that's really, really great. Without further ado, Michael, you've got your microphone. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. Who are you? What do you do? What's your table going to be about? And which table you have, 3B. And what's your favorite word?
I'm Michael McTernan. I'm the CEO and founder of UBOK. I'm also a counsellor and psychotherapist. I spent 2 years working in the NHS. So my background is in AI, medical and digital health and mental health. My table is going to be about how we talk about mental health. So the words that we use, the words that AI uses, and the words that perhaps medicine uses. And my favorite word, is that the last one? My favorite word is aplatanado, which is a Spanish word which means bananaed, and it is used when you are extremely tired, perhaps hungover, as in I am aplatanado, I am bananaed. You know.
Which of the tables are you going to be sitting at?
I'm going to be saying elephant.
Thank you.
So what are the questions again?
Who are you? What do you do? What's your table? Favorite word?
Hi, I'm Jelmer van der Linde. I am a research associate at the University of Edinburgh doing efficient machine translation mostly. And my table is.
Was it Lyrebird?
And it will mostly be probably about like large language models, the risks of them, and also the features. And then since it's machine translation, a focus on multilingual. And my favorite words, I selected toetje, which is like Frisian, and it means a kiss, but it's like toet, which sounds like so it's a bit of an onomatopoeia, so it sounds like the effect it does. And also it has the suffix tje, which you can use in Dutch and in Frisian to make everything small, which is just brilliant. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen. I am a senior analyst at Forecast, which is a data consultancy based in Edinburgh. We kind of specialize in sort of more commercial activity. But also on the side of that, I also am a maintainer on the Open Data Scotland project, which is trying to encourage use of open data in Scotland, trying to sort of encourage pull that where it is and well, encourage people to use it, but also talk about the good stories of open data being used. So probably not a surprise, my table is Husky. Not a surprise then that we're going to be talking about openness. And, you know, how do you what do you want to know about this technology as a user, as a builder? We'll talk about that more in turn. But also I have a nephew with 2 Huskies, and Huskies definitely talk. So we established that one. My favorite word is read, because it's very ambiguous. You don't know what version of read I'm talking about, whether I'm talking about the grass or whether I'm talking about reading a book. And then the different ways that you say read or you read something and how it all changes is all very up to interpretation. So that's kind of my take on it.
Hi, so I'm Marianne Wilson. I'm a PhD student at Edinburgh Napier University. My PhD is in collaboration with Skills Development Scotland, and I'm looking at methods for incorporating domain expertise into the design of conversational AI. And my table is going to be Raven, and we're going to be looking at how to design conversational interfaces for young people and the kind of things that you have to think about there. And my favorite word is stushy, because it's just a good Scots word, and I think it really sounds like what it means. And I didn't realize that it was a Scots word until I was in my 20s, and I used it sort of in mixed company and got lots of confused looks. So
nice. Hi, I'm Matt, or Matthew, but if you call me Matt, That would be great, other than my mum, she calls me Matthew. Yeah, my name's Matt. I'm a principal product consultant at Oracle. I work in the field of building consumer-facing digital products. One of the areas that I work in is in healthcare and health sector. And the table that I'll be on is Orca, depending how you pronounce it. Again, language is a big thing, right? And we'll be looking at how conventional AI could be the voice of personalized healthcare. My word that I picked is gambit. Gambit is effectively used predominantly as an opening move in chess where you sacrifice something to gain an advantage. It's actually, if you look in the dictionary, it can be used in conversation as well, where you sacrifice something to then engage. So quite apt if we're looking at the terms of conventional AI.
Hi everyone, I'm Siobhan Brady and I'm the sales and marketing lead at UBOK. My experience is in global brand and product development, primarily in FMCG companies. And today I'm going to be facilitating the online workshop, exploring the use of dialect and building consumer and brand relationships. My favorite word, and I didn't know we were going to have to explain why, so I'll just simplify, is whirligig, which is something you hang clothes out on in the back garden to dry them in the summertime. My reason this is my favorite word is it causes a lot of confusion between me and my English partner, and it gives him an excuse to not put the laundry away.
Thanks so much. I think we're ready. I've got a question list. Of course, you can send in questions, but because we're sort of doing a workshop thing, that probably won't be a big thing. If all facilitators can find their table, then let's go. And I'm just testing. Okay, great. Hello? Hello? I'm trying to, it is on. Hi. So I really hate to do this because it's been so really wonderful to see everyone talking and discussing, and yeah, I'm gonna have to play the bad guy here and start wrapping these things up. We've been on this for about half an hour now. So I'm going to do, we actually, it turns out, do not have an online group. For some reason, I don't know what the online people are doing, but it does mean that we have slightly more time in here with all of us. So I'm going to go table by table, ask every table to, maybe you've already picked a representative. If not, the facilitator can do it. And I'd like to ask you, if I can find the microphone, cheers, to tell me not just a summary of what you talked about, but what are you going to remember from this workshop? What is maybe a very practical thing that you're going to take away and think, oh, this is something that I can apply, or this is something that I really hadn't thought about and that I learned, or that was completely new to me. So Raven, do you want to start? Brilliant. There you go. Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
So
just for like a minute.
Yeah, we were just talking about how the use of conversational AI for young people. That's what our topic was, and we were just discussing on all the ways that we could use conversational AI in improving the lives of young people. So we were there were multiple suggestions from various people. We were talking about how AI could actually help young people understand embarrassing subjects, or help them learn interactively, or quite a bit actually. Yeah, and more fun, help them learn. The concerns that we had actually faced was dialects, mostly dialects and languages. So let's say a Glaswegian kid wants to ask a question, but the conversational AI would never understand the accent. Or so there were opinions raised saying that the AI could actually reply back in the same accent, so that people would feel more included. But at the same time, that cannot be always the case. That's difficult to implement. So there was also a concern about people losing their identity of dialects, because young kids mostly listen to, let's say, radio or TV programs that are American. So people learn their language from that, and they lose their dialects, they lose their identity. from that. So there should be a solution for that as well. And there were some very valid concerns regarding the problems if we open conversational AI to kids. Let's say, for example, they could be bullied. They could, there's quite a bit again. There was a lot of consequences that we were talking about, how hacking people could actually jailbreak the system, and they could hack it to, let's say, ask ChatGPT, for example, about answers that should not be given to kids, things like that. So we did not end up coming to a particular ending, or a final point where we could interact more about. But this is all that we discussed in the session.
That sounds great. Thanks. I love the discussion about sort of how young people can be influenced in their accents by just watching TV online and having a very different. Of course, I live in the UK. My accent probably more American just because of all the internet stuff that's about. That's really interesting to think about. Did you pick a person, or are you going to do it? Oh no, there you go.
Okay, so we were talking about the language of mental health, and we started by doing three things. First one was we wrote down how we felt. The second time we picked a card which said what we felt. And the third time, a smaller group of cards, so we could see how constraining how we describe about how we feel makes it more difficult to describe how we are. And we talked about that broad question about how do you know how people are, and there's a great example of that. If you ask, broadly speaking, if you ask a Scottish man how he is, he says, fine. And what does that mean? Does that mean, fine, I'm crying and dying inside, or does that mean, fine, actually I'm all right, thanks very much? And so how could we start? What could we do about that? What were the sorts of things we could do? We all thought that context was important. So there's the context of how I am normally. Am I usually relaxed, or am I usually, quite hyper? What's my cultural background? So what kind of things I might speak about, as well as my, the dialects that I might use and the words that I might use. So that context. Perhaps also understanding our starting point of how we are. So what is the language we are happy using around our mental health? And if I'm using language that the AI doesn't understand, then it shouldn't just be taking the best guess at what it is. It should be saying, well, what does that mean? Is that like these kind of words or these kind of words? So exploring what people actually mean, rather than just trying to cram you into you're angry, you're anxious, you're fearful, you're relaxed, whatever. And then the last thing really was
you could.
There was that quite a lot of this is done by text, and even when it's done by voice, it goes from voice to text to voice, etc. So how do we understand? We lose quite a lot in just using text. So how do we make up for that? And if we look particularly at young people, they use a lot of slang, like slang words or particular words that mean the opposite of what you might think. And they use a lot of emojis. So how do we implement that and help the AI to understand that? How's that?
That's great. Sounds like you covered a lot. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to over here. Do you have a person, or is it going to be Karen? You can do it.
Right. We were talking mostly around sort of openness and how you would trust AI, and in particular where the underlying data might not actually be available. Should I stand up? Sorry. Because sometimes, what you're training your data under, you don't really want that to be available as well. So how do you kind of come to trust it? And one of the things that I really like, so we were talking about context of data was one. Do you want to know what the context of how it was collected? What is it? What went into processing it, and what went into interpreting it as well? And what I really loved about that was then this mention of any sort of documentation or explanation that comes out of it. Sometimes it's too long. If you've got like these massive reports, nobody reads them. So you have all good intention, you put them out there, but people still don't really get to absorb that information. So what's the best way of getting that out there with this concept of all this stuff really should be written with the intention of it being readable by someone who is age 10. Is that the sort of reading age 10, if you will? And if you write to that standard, then that makes it more available to more people and the understanding of it. And we were also talking about sort of who really should be responsible. I sound weird when I say it that way. Of course, it's the person who's creating the company that's creating the product that's responsible for making sure it's fair for everyone. But as individuals ourselves, do we have the option to kind of stray away from products that don't need that openness, that you don't really trust? We were talking about corporate governance then coming into play here. Is there something that we can do or on the governance side where, say you supply your coding, you supply that data to a group of people who are trained and are aware of what the standards are, and they can assess it to that standards, and you can get at the end of it a little mark of trust, if you will. So you know that this has met some standards. And then there was a point that standards will change over time because this thing is evolving all the time. What was fine now might not be fine 6 months on. Is there an element of keeping that up to date? And then there was a discussion about the sliding scale of trust. So some things that may be a little bit trustworthy, but also very trustworthy. Maybe there's something there. I think
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one
Fantastic.
point, we talked about using AI to police AI, but then that got a bit weird. So then we stopped. And then we came back to the humans. So we left it as that. Is there anything else that, cover that? Right.
I think it's so cool to remember that, of course, we talk about the language that we use in these AI products, but also it's important to think about the language that we use outside of the AI products, how we talk about them, and how we describe their trust process. And who am I giving the microphone to next? There you go.
Right. In our case, I would say it was mostly an open discussion about the current problems that exist for, on the first sight, solutions that can sound like magical. So we had a use case, which was a situation of, imagine when you're traveling and you have a fantastic app that helps you to leave your reviews while you're traveling. So literally taking your input in a format where you don't really need to go through all the submissions. It's very easy. You ask questions, you submit your reply, or you even can do it via voice. You can just literally say things. And then all the data is collected and used for absolutely phenomenal purposes. But what the problem is here, we focused on different issues that this magical solution can have. And they include, of course, the idea of the weakness of multilingual models, that unfortunately most of the data is trained and is most of these models, they're trained on English, and all other languages are kind of not easily identified. So we have examples when Bulgarian question was answered in Russian, and there were other issues related to the understanding of the languages. So another issue that we pointed out was the diversity that includes the age, because again, the way people who are older talk is hardly ever taken into consideration, like all the phrases, maybe all the vocabulary that they use. And so this is something that is also not taken into consideration. And then another point was mentioned that the speed of the language production that can come from the people who are neurodivergent, so they can speak too fast, they can speak too slow, or there are so many different aspects that unfortunately at the moment we still have plenty of gaps that might hinder the successful introduction, innovation, actual application of these linguistic models that can literally sound like a magical solution for everything, but we're a little bit far. And
thanks. Sorry, I'm just going to look at the time. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's been really great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll just finish with the fact that we have so many problems. We actually have so many opportunities as well, and the areas where both researchers and the practitioners can focus and innovate.
Thanks. Now, the biggest challenge of today, how do I get to the other side of the room? Oh, there's actually a gap here. So one table left, who wants to go? Excitement. Yeah, gotta go. You can do it.
So you see, we looked at the subject of how could conventional AI have a positive effect on people with MCI, so mild cognitive impairment and dementia. So initially, the first kind of barrier that kind of came up was age, but I think that's a problem now. As we sort of, the people in this room, as we start to age and move into that sphere of our life, we're obviously, we're symbionts of digital technology. So, I think that barrier is going to go. So we talked about things that you would imagine, things like, reminders, scheduling, planning, allowing you to basically conduct an independent, your day-to-day lives. But then also sort of looking at the other end of the spectrum when you're, with a doctor, you have 10 minutes it's typically 10 minutes you have in any GP environment. In that period of time, you only tell him what you have. He needs to digest it. He needs to give you information back, and then you need to take that away. Can AI be able to listen, transpose, write it to your electronic medical record? When you leave, you can then ask that back. It gives you back the information, but you can then interrogate it in a form of conversation that will, make it, kind of break down those barriers of medical kind of speech and jargon that can be kind of confusing, especially if you are dealing with, a cognitive impairment.
Fantastic. Sorry. Yeah, we need to move on, but that sounds really great.
No problem.
Thank you. I'll just take it. I'm not going to say anything more. Really, that was it. I just want to ask you to give like a very big applause and everything to all the facilitators that you've been working with today. You've been really, really, really great. And really the core of this workshop. And back to you.
So thank you so much. That I heard bits of conversations as it was happening, and it's so interesting to hear all the feedback from that. It feels like there's a lot of conversations at the start, and there's a lot of things to move on. So maybe a really great outcome of the session today might be, how do those conversations continue? What can you do to link up with the people at your tables that perhaps you haven't met before and you really feel that there's something there, and how to take it forward? So another big round of applause. Thank you so much as well, Rael, for hosting it. Thank you. So your options, you're done in here, unless you want another workshop. There's another great one coming up. So we've got AI and workplace cultures is going to be happening in here. If you're looking for a panel discussion about the human side of conversational AI, that's stage B. And stage C is selling AI, the hype, the FOMO, and is that how you pronounce that, by the way? I've got no idea. Okay, the FOMO and the fear factor. Who knows what they may hold, but enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and yeah, stay put or move around if you're staying for the workshop. I don't know what the layout will be, so thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy.